When I was 17, I made the decision to join the US Marines. Why? Hell if I know. But every time I look at this picture I wonder, what the hell was I thinking? Maybe I wasn't. But regardless, it was too late to change my mind at that point, and upon graduation of high school, I was to go to Parris Island. On the bus ride down there, all I remember was that it was the middle of the night and there was fog everywhere, sort of like a horror movie. I was just waiting for the bus to get a flat tire and then we would all be attacked by a wolf man or something. In other words, it was real creepy. When we first pulled up to the processing building, a raging lunatic jumped on the bus and told everyone to get the hell off the bus and get on the yellow footprints, he said. The yellow footprints are what everyone has to stand on so they can organize everyone when they come running off the bus. When we got inside, we did paperwork for what seemed to take all night. But I do remember the drill instructors telling us to take a black magic marker and write the number 3041 on our left hand, kind of like cattle in a way. But at this point, I was starting to think that cattle had it pretty good. Eventually I learned 3041 was my new platoon number. Soon after that, my clothes and my hair would be gone. I had hair for what seemed to span my entire life. And when I saw my bald head in the mirror for the first time, I remember thinking, what a funny shaped head I have. It was, too. Or I guess I should say it is. It looked kind of like a peanut. But they did dress us up in these fashionable green uniforms. Soon after that, we were given shot after shot after shot. I felt like a human pincushion. Before long, I guess they figured that we looked like Marines, we might as well be given rifles too. And we were. It was funny, I'd only been there for 24 hours and already I had lost my hair, I was dressed in fatigues, had some weird number on my hand, and I was carrying around an M16. How cool is that? Later that day, we were introduced to the 4 men that I would learn to hate very quickly. They would end up being our permanent drill instructors for the rest of our time there. Their names were Sergeant Adams, Sergeant Brown, and Sergeant Glenkamp. Sergeant Glenkamp, I think I hated him the most. He looked and sounded sort of like a Rottweiler. But the guy in charge, who was our senior drill instructor, was Sergeant Helmick, whom up until this point in my life was by far the ugliest person I had ever seen. He was about 6.5 feet tall and rarely spoke, but when he did, you knew you were in trouble. In between being yelled at and doing push-ups, we marched. A lot. We marched all day sometimes. This is what they said how we're to build discipline. But to this day, I fail to understand how standing like this for an hour is going to give me the discipline to do my laundry, get to work on time, or change my oil. I never would think, gee, if only I'd marched more, I could have gotten that done. We would spend a lot of time in hot, sweaty classrooms learning things like how to wear a uniform, the different parts of a grenade, or how to make a tourniquet, you know, really useful things like that. We spent a lot of time hitting each other, too. This was to teach us self-defense, I think. But I think most importantly, it taught me to stay out of fights. I never really considered myself much of a religious person, but I couldn't wait until Sundays. Sunday was the day we went to church, the 1 hour of the week where we didn't have drill instructors in our face and yelling at us. We spent some time learning to swim with our rifles and packs. It was exhausting. I was glad we only spent a couple days doing this. There were a lot of guys that couldn't swim though, and they had to keep coming back over and over again until they got it right. I was never so thankful that I learned how to swim as a kid my whole life. Halfway through my time there, we went to the rifle range to learn how to become marksmen. We were there for 2 whole weeks. They showed us everything. How to sit, how to hold the rifle, even the right way to pull the trigger. I had never shot a gun my entire life, so I was a little bit nervous about making it through this part. But I ended up qualifying as an expert anyway. Go figure. Toward the end of my time at Parris Island, we spent a lot of time living out in the woods. We basically pretended that we were in combat. We threw grenades, sat in foxholes for it seemed to be all day, and fired different types of weapons. Eventually, we had to go to the gas chamber. The gas chamber, I thought, wasn't a very difficult thing to go through. You go in with your mask on with a group of about 20 guys, and soon after that, they tell you to take your mask off for about 30 seconds. You hold your breath, then you put it back on. This was a difficult thing to do for a lot of guys. On Christmas Day, I remember Sergeant Brown coming into our squad bay asking, "Who knows what USMC stands for?" One of the recruits came forward and said, "United States Marine Corps, sir." And Sergeant Brown said, "Wrong! It stands for You Suckers Miss Christmas. Ha ha ha." What a jerk. I was glad to be getting out of there in a week. Graduation day was the day I thought would never come. At one point, it felt like I was never going to leave Parris Island. For 3 months I was down there. I was never so glad to be going home in my entire life. Right before I left, I remember shaking Sergeant Helmick's hand and saying, "Sir, I hope I never see you again."